morning and welcome everyone. Rise and shine. It is day one of Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. My name is Jeff Abramowitz. I am the Public Policy Chair for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and co-chair of the State Advocate for Adult Education Fellowship Program. And I am so excited. This is our first day and our first podcast. So we want to get everybody rising and shining today for AEFL Week. I'm here in Washington, D.C. And thank you, COABE, for getting this off the ground. And thank you for our host today. So I want to give them a shout out before we even begin. RTI International, thank you so much for housing us for all this week, for allowing us to do this podcast and start our day, rise and shine here in Washington for Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. I'm super excited about the events of this week, and so much is going to be going on. First of all, every day, starting at 9 o'clock, we're going to have Rise and Shine. And Rise and Shine is going to be a 1-hour podcast telling you about the events of the day, all the great activities that are happening. We're going to be sharing some stories, some unbelievable guests, as you're going to hear in a second. And we're also going to hear some of our fellows around the country. We're going to be hearing what's going on. We are just going to be all over the place, and we're really super excited about it. So we're going to get started today and not waste any time, because we have a few really super guests today that are going to be telling you about what they do and why Adult Education and Family Literacy Week is so important, and why adult education is so important in our country. So our very first guest who's kicking us off today is Jhacole LeGrand-Dunn, and she's the Senior Director of Pathways at Digital Promise. So if you haven't heard about Digital Promise, hang on. Good morning, Jhacole. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I'm great. How are you this morning?
I am super good. I'm super excited. As you can see, I don't know, I must have had a few extra cups of coffee this morning. Rise and shine. We're getting off the ground. But Adult Education and Family Literacy Week is so important. And it's the one opportunity, I guess everybody stands up and says, you know what, we got to make change happen. And they do. And you're going to hear some great things that are happening across the country today. But I can't think of any better way really of starting this year off than with Digital Promise and yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about Digital Promise and what it is and the work that you guys do?
Absolutely. So Digital Promise is a nonprofit that really focuses and centers the people. And what I like to say is that we are really focused on the journey of people from crayons to Crayola, from crayons to career, I should say. That's kind of what I say about our work. What makes us special is that we bring together solutions for individuals and ensuring equity and access by putting together and making sure that there are resources in research, practice, and technology, putting all of those solutions together and really looking across that span of work to ensure that individuals, particularly those from historically and systematically excluded populations, have access and there's equity in their journey throughout their lives.
So it is such a timely thing when we talk about Digital Promise and the work you guys are doing, because as I think the world hopefully knows by now, the Digital Equity Act is in play, and so much is being done across the country to make sure people have access and they have digital literacy. So where does Digital Promise fall into all of that and the implementation of the Digital Equity Act?
Absolutely. So as I said before, we really focus on centering people. Historically, our work has really centered K through 12 learning, but we have really expanded over the last several years around focusing on, especially in my area, my initiative, which is the Pathways Initiative, formerly known as Adult Learning, really looking at the ways in which we ensure that individuals have access to the jobs and to the upskilling and the work opportunities and the development opportunities that are out there for them. We all know that unemployed and underemployed individuals, one of the major barriers for them is access to or having the sound literacy skills, be that digital and just literacy skills, period, that will ensure that they are not only able to access the information, but that they can thrive when they do receive or get opportunities for both skill development and in work. And so it's really important to us, the work that to partner with you all and the work that you all are doing to ensure that we can support individuals towards a pathway that will not only get them to the knowledge base and the skill development that's necessary for them to continue to grow and develop as individuals, but will give them access to the kinds of jobs and opportunities and employment opportunities that will sustain them financially and make them both contributing and viable parts of the communities in which they live and serve.
Just love that. I just love it, because the truth is that adult learners, if they're really looking for that pathway to success, that career opportunity, we have to give them support when it comes to digital literacy and digital access. Quite frankly, there's not a job around today that doesn't have or requires some digital skill, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We saw a recent report that was put out a while back from the National Skills Network, and it named that 98% of jobs will require some level of digital literacy, right? And so in an effort for individuals at any stage, right, to be able to thrive, we knew that this was coming down the pipelines, and we knew that we've known for a while in the K through 12 sector, but particularly now for those individuals who may not have had that additional layer of support that we're giving, we're trying to make sure that happens for our kids in K through 12 now, our adults who may not have had that, right? So we can't leave this part of the population hanging. They're the part that's driving all of this, right? And they have to support those K through 12 learners at home with families, right? And so I think that that's why our work, especially in my initiative, is so important to me. It's making sure that the layered support that is necessary to support those learners who are early in their trajectory to learning and development, that the supports that they have at home and in the community, that they are ready and able not only to support them, but to support and thrive for themselves. I think we take for granted sometimes how much, one of the things I try to share with individuals when I'm doing workshops or what have you, is how much we interface with, digital, just the things that happen on our day-to-day lives, checking our bank accounts, making payments, all of those things that are just critical to our daily lives, right, that do require some form of digital literacy. So it's not even just about the upskilling for economic mobility and job and employment opportunities. It's about people just being able to live and thrive on a daily basis, right? And to feel like they not only can support themselves, but that, again, they can be viable and contributing members of community.
I love it. I love it. What a great mission. What a great mission. So tell us about the Pathways project that you oversee. So what is it, and how do people get involved in it?
Absolutely. So right now we are working on two big projects, the first of which is looking at the trajectory for Black learners and workers in tech, particularly those who may not take what we call the traditional route for learning. So those individuals who may have a desire to access and be a part of the tech workforce, but don't necessarily have to go to or desire to go to a four-year institution, because there are tons of opportunities out there. And so we are really trying to ensure that we are making employers aware of, number one, know what jobs are available to the individuals, and taking a different route. You don't always have to look in the same places for viable candidates. And then also partnering with upskilling and micro-credentialing and badging opportunity networks, so that you can provide the type of and inform the type of learning that may be necessary to ensure that not only can people access these opportunities when they are not going to a traditional four-year institution, but also so that when they, again, get to these points where they learn the skills necessary to get their foot in the door with these tech positions, that they also are sustainable, that there's opportunities for them to prolong their journey in this work, because we all know that technology is ever evolving. And so it's really important to us to ensure that when individuals get into this work, that they also feel like, I can not only be a part of this work, but there's a journey for me. There's an opportunity for a prolonged future for me in this work. And so that takes so many things into account, not only the work that they're, the skilling that is necessary for the current jobs, but also, and future jobs, but also thinking about the work environment and how do we ensure that people feel a sense of belonging when they come into these work environments, and that they also feel some autonomy and like they have some ownership of what happens with their career trajectory and their lives afterwards. And then in addition to that, we are also working on a project that focuses on early childhood education workers in rural communities and ensuring that they receive a livable wage and that they also have a sustainability not only for themselves, but for their families.
I just love it. I love it. So we're here because of Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. Can you kind of give this to us? Why is it so important? Why is it important for us to connect the dots between digital literacy and adult education, and specifically here in Washington and across the country this week in particular?
It's so important because, again, one of the things that I think that we forget about is this idea of this ever evolving piece with regard to technology. And literacy skills, they are the foundation for individuals being able to feel like they have a standing in the world and that they can move forward. And so I think the work that you all are doing in really promoting adult and family literacy, especially partnering with other entities like ourselves and kind of really not just from a regional standpoint, but from actually globally, really introducing the importance and banging the drum for the importance of this work is vital to not only individual lives, but for us as a community, as a society. I am a firm believer that we are all inextricably linked, and that when we support each other in this work, we not only support the individuals who are supported or who are provided the opportunities to thrive and survive, or not just survive, but to thrive, I should say. But we take care of ourselves, and we take care of the future of our, not just this country, but our global society.
Yeah, I think for the longest time we've been, when we talk about adult education, we've talked about digital literacy, and we talked about getting back to work and a career pathway. They've all kind of been separate. And for finally, for years, now they're finally starting to come together. We're realizing that there are multiple pieces of this puzzle that all fit in. And that's really exciting to see. I got to give a shout out. Robert Breitbart from Burlington English is on and posted how to reach you guys at digitalpromise.org. So I hope everyone listening will check you guys out at digitalpromise.org, and that it's wonderful work you're doing. I'm curious though, we're a large audience. We're going to be blasting this out, and what message would you have for those people listening this week? That call to action, that thing that you'd want them to be doing wherever they are, and even if they're an adult learner, or if they're an instructor, or if they're an administrator, what is your call to action for people?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question, Jeff. One of the things that, as an organization called Digital Promise, that really looks at ensuring that there is that we provide and we help to provide solutions across research practice and technology. The important thing to me in all this work, especially when we think about the innovations that we are constantly trying to advocate for and support of, what we keep central to all of that work is people. I think about, some of the things that are happening now with AI and some of the wonderful things that we see on the forefront that are coming out of AI, and some of the things that may cause concern as well. What I really want to make a call to action is keep people centered. There's never ever going to be a replacement for who we are as people, and the way that we connect as people. And so I am encouraging employers, I am encouraging educators, I am encouraging those who help us, other adults and individuals, to navigate both upskilling and workforce and education, to keep people centered by ensuring that, number one, we are abreast and aware and remain abreast of and aware of the supports and the many varied supports that are available to the varied needs of the individuals. We are not a one-size-fits-all society. And when we are out here trying to ensure that we advocate and develop pathways for individuals that will, again, help them not only to survive, but to thrive, be aware of, and partner with individuals, partner with other groups, so that we can, be innovative as people and think about the ways that we can talk about ensuring that we are providing the supports that are tailored to fit the varied needs of people. Because again, technology is great, but I believe the people are the heart of what makes all of this happen.
Yeah, so for sure, I think this takes a village, right? This takes more than just Digital Promise and COABE, who are all doing great work. This takes a village. It takes a lot of people all coming together to have these discussions and really talk about those hard issues of, how do we get people in some of our really challenging areas of our country? How do we get them access? And how do we get them smarter? And how do we get them into a career pathway? And it does take, it takes all of us kind of jumping together and thinking about, well, what are the things I can do? And it can be really the small things too. So I remember recently I had an extra laptop that somebody dropped off, and it was kind of older, but I knew that I had a neighbor who was a little bit older and never had a laptop in his life. Never had one, never had access to one. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to drop it off. And dropped it off to him, and it was like changed his world. It was like, oh my gosh, I can do all this stuff. Like I want a recipe for something, and I can just put it in, and that pops up. And it's a whole different world out there today. But I think we all need to take some responsibility in this, right? And those little things like giving someone an old laptop or helping someone connect to the internet are all things that you can do. In the work that you do at Digital Promise, what's the best way of getting hold of Digital Promise to find out more about your programming?
Oh, by all means, please feel free to go to our webpage, which is digitalpromise.org. Also, you can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to either lend a hand or point you in the right direction. You can find me at Jhacole, that's Jhacole at digitalpromise.org. And again, you can also connect to get on our mailing list for our spotlight, not only for, and I'm banging the drum for myself here because it's my own initiative a little bit, but if you go to the Digital Promise website, it will give you the opportunity to join in and get our regular newsletters that come out with a regular cadence from each of the initiatives. But by all means, please get engaged with us, reach out to us, reach out to me. We're partners in this work, people first, and let's get together and make change that we know will not only impact the lives of the individuals that we hope to support, but also will make sustainable and positive change for us just globally.
I love it. So, Jhacole, I do have one last question for you before we wrap and go to our next guest is in a perfect world, like if you had your magic wand, I'm giving everyone this week their magic wand, and they're going to be able to use it. But in a perfect world, what change would you like to see happen in our country when it comes to digital literacy?
In a perfect world, I would like to see that there was legitimate and genuine equity in access to skill development and access to employment opportunities, and in access to each other. That I think in a perfect world, that genuine and legitimate access for historically and systematically excluded populations, for individuals at every rung of our society, because I think that we are better together. And so when we really get together and collaborate in a way that brings everyone to the table, I think that we are all better. And in a perfect world, I see that happening. I think we can get there, Jeff. I really do. It just takes people who are willing to connect the dots and be in community.
I absolutely positively love it. It is a really long highway that we have to traverse. And we're going to do this one step at a time. And Digital Promise and Jhacole are going to be with us, guiding us along the highway to get to that next step. So we're going to keep at it. Jhacole, thank you for being on today. Just an absolutely great way to start off Rise and Shine. I do hope you'll join us throughout the week and hop back on anytime. Give us a little bit of what's going on at Digital Promise this week and how they're pushing the ball forward or taking that step forward to that next place. But thank you so much give us one last time. We want to reach Digital Promise. How are we going to do it?
You're going to reach us at www.digitalpromise.org. And you can always also reach out to me, Jhacole, at digitalpromise.org. And I intend to be here, Jeff. If you keep giving us the kind of energy that you were serving this morning, I look forward to it.
We are. It's amazing what a few cups of coffee will do. Jhacole LeGrand-Dunn, thank you so much. Digital Promise. Your email is it's in the chat box, as well as their link to their company. So please check them out, and grateful to have you on. Thank you so much. So we're going to go on to our next guest in 1 second. I do want to take a brief pause and just tell everybody we're here for Rise and Shine. Every Monday through Friday this week, we're going to be talking about Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, what you could be doing. You're going to be hearing from some unbelievable people. And our next guest is up, so I'm going to get her on 1 second, but I got to give a shout out to the COABE Board of Directors and some of our old board. Last year at this time, I had a companion in crime who was sitting right next to me. It was Dr. Don Finn was with us, and Don is past president of COABE. And Don, I know you're out there listening to us today. I hope you'll chime in with some chat, and hopefully we'll get you on to find out what you're doing this year for Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. I'm really excited to bring on our next guest. So as recent public policy chair for COABE, I've had a chance to work with Elyse Wasch in the past from Penn Hill Group. Really excited. So when we talk about Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, and actually going in front of legislators and understanding how policy can change adult education in the country, I can think of very few people in the country that I can point to as my go-to. And at least you are the person from Penn Hill Group. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really great to be here. I wanted to, introduce a little bit about myself, if that would be helpful. I am Elyse Wasch, as Jeff said. I have been at Penn Hill Group, which is a bipartisan education consulting firm, for about 1.5 years. But before I came to Penn Hill, I was a Senate staffer, worked in the U.S. Senate for 27 years. And so I'm here to share an insider's perspective and insights on how you can make a great impact during AFL week.
Wow. So much to talk to you about. I don't even know that we're going to have enough time, but I got to start with the very beginning, which is tell us, what is Penn Hill Group? What do they do?
So we support member organizations like COABE and try to provide sort of that insider's perspective on what is going on in the federal government, Congress and the administration, and provide guidance and advice and support to COABE members and try to advance the ball for the priorities that COABE has set forth. We have many staff who have been on Capitol Hill or been in the administration, and so we use that know-how to provide organizations like COABE with the sort of the best know-how and skill sets to move their priorities forward.
Yeah, so you are the ones that have your finger on the pulse of what's actually happening in Washington. And we've had a number of public policy meetings getting ready for Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. So we're going to talk a lot about, what should be on people's radar screen and what it looks like. But you've been doing this for a bit with COABE. We've been working together for a little while. And I'm curious from your perspective, over the past few years, what have you seen as in up on Capitol Hill and really across the country when we talk about adult education? Like, what legislatively are we moving forward? Are we standing still? Are we moving backwards? Like, where's the change right now?
Yeah, I think that the field is helping to move the ball forward. We have seen increases in funding for adult education in recent years, which has been a testament to the advocacy by COABE to reach out to members of Congress and make the case for why adult education needs to be supported more robustly. It's not at the level that we are pushing for, at $810 million, but we're, inching closer every year. And that's important progress. And that, again, is due to the efforts and advocacy of all of the members of COABE. We also have several legislative proposals that are making their way through Congress. There are 2 bills that COABE is pushing that are bipartisan in the Senate. And, the hope is that as Congress can come together on some reauthorization bills that impact adult education, that COABE's priorities will find its way in those bills.
Yeah, I love it. For the longest time, we were kind of stagnant, if not going backwards, when it came to adult education funding. And in the last few years, I think men and women that are up on the Hill really have found that they are, they're making a difference. Right? Things are starting to change. We're starting to see additional funding dollars, but it's not just about funding. There's a lot of pieces that are in play here. I want to go back and we are here at Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, and we have people all around the country that are going to be talking to legislators, some in a local level, some at a state, some here in Washington at a federal level. So give it to us, like, as an expert in this, like, what should we be doing when we go in and talk to legislators? What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is the story, is the impact that you're making every day with adult learners, and painting that picture, providing a clear and concise and compelling story about maybe a particular adult learner that you've supported and helped. Really making it real for members of Congress, for your local legislators, for your state government officials. It's really important. You're the touch point for adult learners in this country, and your average policymaker doesn't see the work that you're doing. So you really just need to really find a way to provide some kind of really engaging kind of story that really can capture the work that you're doing. And I know you're doing so much work in so many different areas and helping so many different people. But, I think that kind of storytelling and making it real and, that compellingness is what moves the dial.
Not only moves the dial, it changed the dial. When you bring a student story or even a teaching story with you into that meeting with legislators or legislative aides, we're going to talk about legislative aides in a second, but when you go to those meetings and you tell that story, those are the things that stick with people and often turn into the real passion causes that legislators move on, because they're their constituents. They actually brought them to office. They're the ones that are in their jurisdictions, that are, when they go home, the people that they see in their streets and their neighborhoods, super important. And they may not remember a lot about a lot of the data and facts you're going to hopefully give them and leave behind, but they're always going to remember that story. And that's one of the most important things. I want you to do me a favor. We have a lot of meetings going on over the course of this week for Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. And I often hear from people that, well, I'm only meeting with the legislative aide, or I'm only meeting with, the executive director, whatever it is, somebody below the senator or the legislator themselves. How important are those meetings? And are they really as important as meeting with the legislator?
Well, as a former Senate staffer, I would say that those meetings are very critical, because it's the staff member who has the ear of the member of Congress or the policymaker locally. And if you could connect the dots for that staff member, excite that staff member about the work that you're doing, that then will give them an opportunity to share that with their boss. And ultimately you're their constituents, and staff members are working every day to ensure, not to be crass, but that their member gets reelected, and their members get reelected if they meet the needs of their constituents, if they are responsive to the things that their constituents are asking them. So it's really important to go into those meetings and knock it out of the ballpark. It's not a slight on you. Members of Congress and policymakers locally are very busy, but that's why they rely on staff to take these meetings and provide them with the information that they need to do their jobs.
Yeah, it's funny, but I will tell you that I've had, I think those meetings are just as important as meeting with the legislator often, and in most cases. And one meeting I had right before COVID, I was coming out of a meeting with legislative aides, and the senator was coming out of another meeting with some people well dressed in very nice suits, and it seemed like it was a pretty impressive meeting. And when the senator saw me, he recognized me from his home district and called me into his office, and we had 45 minutes together just chatting and talking about, our region and where we live. And sometimes those kinds of things happen organically as well. So every meeting is important. We're going to talk about two more things I really want to get to today. And the first is, what are the things we should be asking for when we're up on Capitol Hill, we're talking to legislators over the course of this week? What are the big asks that we should be putting on the table?
I think right now there are three asks that COABE is pushing. One is funding. Right now there's sort of the typical movie that happens in Washington where Congress is trying to figure out how to fund the government for the next fiscal year. The current fiscal year ends in 13 days, and there is no agreement as yet on funding. So this is kind of a perfectly timed week for COABE to be up in Washington and on phone calls, even locally, to say it's so important to fund adult education more robustly. Thank you so much for the increases we've received in recent years, but we need more. So as all of the funding is sort of on the table and trying to be decided upon, everyone is advocating for something. And so COABE needs to make sure that they are putting their best face forward, urging additional dollars for adult education. Second of all, and I'll probably tie this with the third of all, there's two legislative bills I had mentioned earlier. One is the Strengthening Research in Adult Education Act, introduced in the Senate by Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island and Senator Todd Young of Indiana, a Democrat and a Republican, bipartisan bill to improve the education research apparatus, so it includes more information about adult education, better information, strengthens what we know about adult education. And in the Senate Education Committee, there are conversations happening right now about that larger reauthorization bill, the Education Sciences and Research Act. And we're hoping that we can get the research in adult education into that process. So that's one of the legislative asks in addition to the funding. The second one on the legislative side is the Adult Education Works Act, which was introduced last Congress, again by Senators Reed and Young. And that is an effort to improve the Title II adult education programs under the Workforce Opportunity Innovation Act, or WIOA. That's where the main federal funding comes from for adult education programs. And we want to make sure that we can move the ball forward as the House Education Committee is looking at that bill, the WIOA reauthorization. And so the Adult Education Works Act has a number of provisions that the COABE field came together on to urge Congress to take up to strengthen how we do adult education in this country. And we're looking for a sponsor in the House. We have a Democratic sponsor, Representative Lucy McBath of Georgia, who's going to introduce that bill in the House, but we need a Republican. So if you're talking to Republicans, particularly House members, we want to urge them to support that bill. And I know we have materials that we're sharing with you that it describes these bills in more detail, and I'm happy to answer questions that you might have. But those are the three asks in total.
I love it. So this is why we had you on, Elyse, because this is the information we all really need to know. But I want to give a shout out to Sharon, Bonnie, and COABE and all the COABE staff, because truthfully, we are, like, I'm learning every single day. I pull this information up, and one of the things I'm going to ask that they make sure, Sharon and Lindsay, if you could put in the chat box, where to go for these resources, like have them with you. I do believe that a person without data is just another person with an opinion. And the great point of the great fact about that is COABE gives you the data. You know, we have these amazing state and national fact sheets that are out there, and you need to check them out because, quite frankly, they're going to give you all the data that you need walking into these meetings, and to be able to share why it's so important. But laying down the data, setting the story, those are all the important pieces. Elyse, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, like, what are your key pointers that you could give all the people listening today that are going to be jumping in the pool, doing some great work, but what should they know about walking in and conducting the meeting? And what are your top maybe 3 or 4 things that every advocate should have in their toolkit as they walk into these meetings?
I think one, being prepared is like the most important thing. So taking a minute to look at the policymaker's website before you go into the meeting, look at what they might have been doing on education policy. Usually they want to highlight the things that they're working on. Let's say a member has talked about career and technical education. Well, might not, their website might not mention adult education, but I think you can use what you know about career and technical education to make those connections to adult education and kind of make the case that if the member already supports career and technical education, you should be supporting adult education too, or something to that effect. So knowing something about the member, the policymaker that you are meeting with, what their policy priorities will help you tailor your message directly to what the member is interested themselves. Second of all, preparing ahead of time what you might say, like have your pitch, how to say within 30 seconds, your elevator pitch. Why are the things that you are seeking from the policymaker is so critical? And then 3, kind of what we discussed earlier, that one story that brings so much color and reality to the statistics that you might be sharing. That one person whose life has changed dramatically because of their experience in adult education, or an adult educator who has touched the lives of so many learners. And all of that is so critical for you to be able to provide. So being prepared and then painting that picture.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I used to be a trial lawyer, and I remember in law school, one of my professors used to say, whenever you're advocating, you should always remember to, when you walk into the meeting or walk into a courtroom, you should tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them it, and then tell them what you told them before you walk out. And those are my 3. Make sure you hammer home and know what your ask is. Know that, you want them leaving with something. You want them walking, when you walk out of that room, you want to know what action do you want them to take, so that they can continue to move the ball forward. Elyse, you guys have been tremendous friends of COABE, and Penn Hill Group is just amazing. Your staff are with us. They really have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in Washington, and we cannot thank you enough for all that you do. Adult Education and Family Literacy Week is all week. I believe it should be Adult Education and Family Literacy Day, and it should be every day of the year. Like, we should just have it, make it constant, because it's so important. Although I recognize that there's so much work going on. Our SAFE Fellows, the State Advocates Fellowship Program for COABE, if you look at our Padlet on our website of all the proclamations we've had across the country from governors and mayors and legislators, just supporting Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, there is a tremendous movement across the country, not only at a federal level, but also at a state level, to make change and make adult education really a priority in our states and federally. Elyse, thank you so much. I just want to give you some space. If people wanted to find out more about Penn Hill Group, how would they go about getting more information? Or if they needed, they had a question that they wanted to get to you, even if it was through COABE, what's the best way of doing that?
Sure. Well, Penn Hill Group, you can find us on the web, pennhillgroup.com. For me, if you would like to reach out directly, I'd be happy to. My email address is ewasch, WASCH, at pennhillgroup.com. So those are 2 ways. And I want to echo something, Jeff, that you just said, that AFL week should be a day and every day. What happens this week can't just end at the end of the week. You have to make advocacy a year-long endeavor. if you're making a connection to a policymaker or their staff, you need to keep calling them up, writing them emails, sending them notes, because you don't want to be forgotten. This is not a one-time ask of your efforts. Work is hard, but the work that you are doing every day to improve the lives of adult learners is so critical, and you need to make sure that that's top of mind for your legislators. So
Wow.
every day is the day.
It sure is. Elyse, thank you so much for jumping on today and for your work this week. I know that I'm going to be we'll be seeing Penn Hill Group throughout the week. We have a full plate agenda with Sharon, and I know Jhacole is going to be on. Jhacole Thomas is going to be on. The president of COABE is here in Washington, going to be on some of the meetings, and really looking forward to making change happen. And it all starts with really having the information that we need, and Penn Hill Group has been awesome at doing that. So I want to give you a big thank you. Any last comment? Any give me a rah-rah for everybody out there that's doing this work in Washington before you get on.
Your voice is what matters. Everyone is out there advocating for their cause. You need to be out there too. And it's really important when COABE sends out an action alert to take an action step, please try to think about doing it, because it's really critical. And as you look at the fact sheets and see some of the points that are included in the legislative asks, if there's something that speaks to you, like a particular provision that these bills try to improve, that maybe speak to those points, like provide the story that really will elevate why it is that you are asking the member to do this or that.
Elyse Wasch, Penn Hill Group, thank you so much. It's great having you on today. Look forward to the rest of the week and how all this plays out, and actually seeing some of those action steps to really come into legislation. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We're going to be, and our next guest is another rock star. So I told you this is the week. Every day, Monday through Friday this week, 9 o'clock. Just jump on, and you're going to be able to really hear what's going on in the with AEFL week. Thank you, COABE, for sponsoring this. RTI is hosting us this week, and we're here at their offices in Washington, D.C. So thank you, RTI, for that. And thank you to all the unbelievable board members and COABE members that are jumping on today. Spread the word. Get it out there. If you want to know what's happening the rest of the week, get on at 9 o'clock, and you'll be able to follow us all week long as to what's happening. I will just, before we bring on our next guest, Brandi, we have this today at 11 o'clock. Sharon Bonnie and Jhacole Thomas are doing a live kickoff with Octay. Assistant Secretary Amy Lloyd's going to be on, and just check that out. And if you want all of the schedule of what's happening this week, I'm going to make sure Lindsay and Sharon put it in the chat box right now for you, so you have it. It's going to be just crazy good. Thank you, COABE staff, for everything you're doing behind the scenes on this. But I want to bring on our next guest so she can come on camera. Brandi Ratliff, welcome. Brandi is the program specialist at Mississippi Community College, and we're grateful to have you. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. How are things in Mississippi?
They are pretty good. Mississippi is doing Mississippi things today. The weather was good. I think it was 59 when I got up, and that's kind of a big accomplishment for Mississippi. I don't think
I love it.
For the last 5 months, so it was great.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I'm here in Washington, and Brandi, I'm looking out the conference room windows where the podcast is, and quite frankly, there's sun coming out. So all our advocates that are up on the hill today, you're going to get some sunshine today. I promise. It looks great. So Brandi, tell us a little bit about what you do as a program specialist at Mississippi Community College Board.
Okay, so my job at the board is that I provide professional development for all of our adult education programs in Mississippi. Our programs are housed in our community colleges, and then we have 3 in school districts. And so basically any technical assistance they need, I set that up. I set up our PD calendar. I plan our conferences each year. I plan our retreats, our institutes, create our online learning for our different things. So just a little bit of all that.
So just one question before we get into this. Do you ever sleep? Like that laundry list of items has to keep you busy 24/7.
That is a great question. The answer is no.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so. So we're here talking about Adult Education Family Literacy Week. And I know one of the biggest things that when we talk about adult education in general is really providing support for our educators across the country. We talk a lot about getting funding and resources. We talk about our students a lot. But one of the things I think we don't talk enough about is our teachers and our instructors and people out there that are really that are so dedicated and so passionate. And we really can only work to make them better by the professional development that you guys provide. So you talked a little bit about it, but what are the kinds of things that are in Mississippi that you try to make sure your teachers and instructors have in their toolbox to make sure that they're better at their job?
Okay, so one of the things that I know is that all research shows that teachers are going to have the most impact on student outcomes. Of anyone in the building, it's going to be the teacher. Teachers are going to be the reason a lot of those students come back to the programs is the relationship they have with those teachers. So our teachers are on the front line every day, and I really believe that they are the tool that's making the difference. What we do and what we see here, and especially what I do with professional development, is that I surveyed those teachers back in the spring and really just asked them, what is the thing that you need the most professional development in? What is the guidance you need? What is the thing you see? Mental health was one of the things that they requested. Another thing was support with learning disabilities. And so when I was looking at the calendar and looking at the PD schedule, that was sort of some of the things I wanted to build into that. Digital literacy, we know that's our initiative for this year, is how can we increase digital literacy? We partnered with the Barbara Bush Foundation back in the spring, and they did 2 digital literacy trainings for us through webinars that our people participated in. And we feel that digital literacy, especially in Mississippi can sometimes feel like we're a little bit behind the rest of the nation in things. You know, broadband expansion, all of these things, sometimes we seem like, or we feel like we may not be where everybody else is, but then I think sometimes we're ahead of the game. We're working to make sure that our people have access to technology, they have access to the internet, and we're providing them the tools and the learning they need to be able to use those.
Wow, you just threw so much at me. I got to take a step back for a second because so many of those things are really super important. The first one is the issue of mental health for our teachers and instructors, and something I don't think is given enough attention in our country is how we can support our teachers with mental health support systems that are there. It is hard work, and often we know, all of us know on this call, that it is not at the highest rate of pay in the country. We're not executives across the country. We're teachers generally are in the, we need to do a better job at funding our teachers, but recognizing some of these issues of mental health and behavioral health issues that we can support them with are so important. What are the kind of programs or projects that you have going on that you're doing to help support teachers in that light?
So one of the things that we did was I partnered with Links, and they are doing a trauma-informed teaching training for us. It's 5 sessions. It kicked off last month, and we have 1 session each month. Our next session is tomorrow, and each session sort of focuses on a different component of mental health that you might see in your educators, in your students, in your building. And ways to support those learners, ways to identify when a student is in distress, and that maybe it's not just a learning issue, it's an outside issue that they're bringing in with them, how to support them, how to provide whatever resources they need to get around that and be able to perform the task to get the education that they're there for. So that's our current model that we're using. So, so far, I think that it's been very successful. I think we've gotten a lot from that.
Brandi, so I'm getting some help from people that are on the call because I love it. This is a team, a joint effort. So if you have any questions or points you want me to raise, please feel free to throw them in the chat box. But somebody mentioned that you actually were a former adult education learner, and you bring that to the table. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, so when I was 17, I always tell people 23 years ago, one of the biggest
Wow.
in my life impacted me. I was 17 years old. I was a high school dropout. I had dropped out really in 8th grade. I just stopped going to school. I had a lot of anxiety. I was anxious all the time, and I'd started homeschooling. And a lot of times, especially in rural areas, when you homeschool or when you come from a house where there's just not a lot of educational background, you're not going to have anyone really teaching you the skills that you need. And so I didn't make it very far in homeschool because the adults in my home did not have a high school diploma either. So I was tempted to go back, didn't know what to do, ended up getting my GED. And it made a big difference for me. I ended up going to community college, earning a Phi Theta Kappa scholarship, and then that led to a 4-year degree, and then that led to my master's and then my specialist, and then working towards my doctorate degree.
Congratulations. So you are, we just heard from Elyse the stories that we have to tell. You're just one of those stories, those unbelievable success stories. Congratulations. It's really impactful when you hear about learners and what they can achieve just by, just having the passion and drive to move forward and want to learn. And congratulations. You also are you've been part of the you mentioned Barbara Bush Foundation and the work that you're doing with them, and you're part of the All-In Senate Caucus, which is coming up on Thursday. Really excited about that. You're on the panel there. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's going to happen on Thursday?
So on Thursday, I believe we're going to have a panel that just goes in and kind of each of us have a different perspective or a different position that we are in with adult education. And I don't know that we're there necessarily to advocate, but I think our goal is that the current Senate caucus increases to at least 25 members. We would love to see more members of Congress participate in that and join in with that.
What a great story, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to check it out on Thursday while I'm up here in Washington. So oftentimes we, as people that work in the field, as instructors and educators, we're shy about advocating. We're shy about getting those stories out. What role do you see as educators play in the advocacy piece of really being up on whether it's Capitol Hill or in front of your state legislator or even locally and your local politicians? What role do our educators play in all that?
Well, here's where I believe on this. I believe that if you don't tell them what your needs are, they're not going to know. There are too many things that fall on the shoulders of our elected officials. They've got so many topics and so many people vying for their attention. If you don't go in front of them and tell them what your needs are, how are they going to know what they need to do to support you? So I believe in advocacy. I believe in standing up for things that you believe are necessary and have generational value. And that's what I believe adult education is. I believe it is a generational impact. It's a trickle down. It's going to not just meet your generation, but it's going to meet the next generation and the next generation. So we know that adult literacy is family literacy. We know that people who are advocates for K-12, if you advocate for K-12, you have to advocate for adult literacy. They go hand in hand. That's the parents of those children. And you can't reach those children until you've reached those parents and given them the tools they need to speak that into their own children in their homes.
Wow, so true. I remember one of the greatest stories as an educator that I had was an adult learner who came in and said, you know what, I just spent last night working with my son on fractions, and we worked together through problems. And it was the most incredible thing that they were actually helping each other out, and his son was working with him. And those are the kind of things that are really impactful, the stories that we have to tell. And your story is so impactful going forward. I've been giving out this really special wand that I have. I don't physically have it here, but I'm going to give it to you virtually. And I'm curious if you had your magic wand and could change things in adult education in Mississippi or across the country, what are the kinds of things that you'd like to see changed?
Well, I'd like to see more adult education programs offered at the K-12 level, because we have so many students in K-12 in the high school level that fall out, but because of our accountability system, it sort of penalizes schools, your public schools, if they have dropouts. I'd love to see that change, because there are students who are not going to be traditional route. No matter what you do or how hard you want them to be traditional route, there are too many barriers in their life. There are too many mental health issues. There are just too many things going on with those students. And they need a pathway to be able to get some type of alternate diploma so they can get into the workforce. And so I would love to see our programs in every K-12 and MDE, that's our Mississippi Department of Education. I would love to see them make changes to the accountability so that schools would have a better way to serve those students who are not going to be traditional route.
Wow, that's just it's a great comment. It's a great something to really keep on our radar screens as we talk about, solutions, really, because this is what it's all about. It's, the solutions are going to help drive adult education further. And the other thing that you said in there, which I want to just pick apart for a second, is the idea or concept of barriers. And, there are so many barriers to adult learners, and it's things like diapers, right? It's providing diapers for your kids and the priorities of going out and making a living and putting a roof over your head and food and shelter and all those basic necessities. Understanding that adult education is just more than that classroom. It's more than what happens in the classroom. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what was some of the biggest challenges that you faced in your journey?
For me, the biggest challenges was just missing skills. It was that I had missed so much school that I had a lot of learning deficit there that I had to overcome. And so a great example of the trickle down is that my grandmother was a middle school dropout. My mother dropped out in middle school and got a GED. School no longer had value to me. So generationally, education had no meaning. So it wasn't something you put a lot of time and effort into, because the time and effort were in things that were working, making money, providing for your family, because it was a survival skill. With me, this is where you break the mold. This is where adult education matters. I got the GED, but I didn't stop with that. I pursued the additional diplomas or degrees. Maybe it's a career pathway you want to pursue that's more of a skill trade. But I continued to pursue, and I pursued and pursued and I pursued. Now I have children. Now my daughter is a second generation college student. I went to the University of Mississippi. My daughter is at the University of Mississippi. She's an honors college. She's in the Trent Lott Institute of Leadership there. She's in Women's Council. When you transform your thinking and when you let your plan and your purpose align, you now change. So it went from generation of dropout to now generation of college graduates. So it only takes one person believing in you or believing in yourself to completely change the generational impact on your family.
Brandi, you are just an inspiration, and thank you so much for being on today. If people really wanted to get some information about the work that you do and what's happening in Mississippi, how could they reach you? How could they reach your program?
Okay, well, we have our website is Skill Up Mississippi, and that is where you can contact local adult ed programs. It sort of shows you statewide where our programs are. And then if you need to contact me, it's bratliff@mccb.edu, and I can add that to the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on here for Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. The work you're doing is inspirational. You're an inspiration, and we're grateful to have you on. Good luck today. Good luck today and throughout the whole week, especially in front of the Senate caucus. Hoping I'll get to meet you in person there, and really keep it all up. This is why we do the work we do, and professional development plays a key part in educating adult learners across the country and educating our instructors and our teachers. So thank you so much again, Brandi. We are almost out of time on our very first day, and we're grateful to have you on. So thank you. This has been an amazing morning. We started our day, for those that jumped on maybe a little bit late, we had Jhacole LeGrand-Dunn. Thank you for your wisdom as Pathways at Digital Promise, senior director at Pathways at Digital Promise. Elyse Wasch at Penn Hill Group, thank you so much for being on. And obviously Brandi Ratliff, program specialist at Mississippi Community College. You're all amazing. I do want to give a shout out today to Jhacole Thomas, our president of COABE, who's been on and is just doing a remarkable job. Jhacole, thank you for everything you do for the organization. You're leading a really strong ship, and we're excited excited to have you in that role. We have so much more going on. We have about a minute and a half, and I just want to talk to you about a few things. The first is at 11 o'clock today, you want to catch the live kickoff. It's there's a registration link. They're going to put it in. Sharon, I'll make sure the link is in. You can also check it out on COABE website, but you want to get on at 11 o'clock and you want to hear from Assistant Secretary Amy Lloyd. And if you've never heard Secretary Lloyd about her passion for adult education, she is with the Office of Career and Technical Adult Education here in Washington. And she is not only so passionate about this, she is just gives so much information. So you got to check it out at 11 o'clock. Great session. I know Sharon and Jhacole will be on there as well tomorrow. Oh, and then this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Don't forget, 2 o'clock today, we have Impacts That Count. It showcases the value of HSC credentials for the adult education system. So you want to check that out as well. It's 2 o'clock today. So 11 and 2, get them on your calendar right now. Check them out. The rest of the week, 9 o'clock here, Rise and Shine. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's been a really fun webinar, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow and sharing more of what's going on as we continue through the week. So we're going to take us out right now, and I'm going to take how we came in today. Here we go.